Is America's booming economy all smoke and mirrors? Could we be on the verge of a massive economic bubble? That's the alarming question Ruchir Sharma asks in his new book.
He's a leading expert from Rockefeller International.
And he's sounding the alarm about the direction of the U.S. economy. We're going to take a deep dive into his analysis to really understand what's happening and what it could mean for all of us.
You know, Sharma's central argument is about America's dependence on government debt to fuel economic growth. He's saying that it just isn't sustainable and it could have some pretty serious consequences in the future.
And the numbers paint a pretty clear picture. For every dollar of GDP growth, the U.S. is taking on $2 in new debt.
Wow.
That's actually double what it was just 5 years ago. That's a huge jump.
It's a big increase.
To put it in perspective, imagine if you were making $100,000 a year, but you were adding $200,000 to your credit card debt.
Yeah,
That's kind of what's happening on a national level.
that's a good way to put it. And this brings us to a really important number, the debt-to-GDP ratio. Right now, the U.S. is at 100%.
100%. Wow.
Historically, we've only seen that level after major events like, World War II.
Oh, wow.
But the thing is, we're not facing a global crisis like that right now to justify such a large debt.
So how is the U.S. getting away with this much debt when other countries would be in serious trouble?
That's the million-dollar question that Sharma is exploring, right? He thinks it might be temporary. Other countries, if they had that kind of debt-to-GDP ratio, would see investors pulling their money out.
Right.
Because they'd be afraid of instability. The U.S. hasn't faced that yet, but Sharma warns it could happen.
So if things are really this unsteady, why does the economy seem so strong?
Yeah.
Stock market is up, unemployment is down.
Yeah.
How does Sharma explain that?
Well, he thinks this idea of a strong economy, it's kind of an illusion. It's being propped up by government spending. He argues that if you take away government intervention and the influence of these big tech companies, the picture isn't as rosy.
So are we building on a shaky foundation here? Government spending is holding things up for now, but what happens when that stops?
Exactly. And the U.S. is currently running the biggest deficit ever at this point in an economic cycle.
Wow.
This kind of deficit spending creates an artificial boom. It's like a sugar high. You get a burst of energy, but then you crash.
Right. And let's talk about the big problem, the interest payments on all this debt. How does that play into this?
Well, interest payments, they're a huge expense, and it's only getting bigger. We're talking over $1 trillion every year.
$1 trillion.
It's more than the U.S. spends on defense, and that's money that's not being used for things like education, infrastructure, research.
That's a massive amount.
Yeah.
So it sounds like we're caught in this cycle, right?
Right.
More debt leads to higher interest payments, which then digs us deeper into debt.
Yeah, it's a dangerous loop. It could easily get out of control. Sharma thinks this is going to force investors to demand higher interest rates on U.S. debt, and that would make the government tighten its spending. But that has its own costs.
Yeah, because that could actually slow down the economy even more and hurt corporate profits. It's a tough situation.
Exactly. Sharma points to another warning sign. You know how U.S. stock prices have been surging lately?
Yeah.
Well, they've been doing better than other global markets, and that often happens in the late stages of a bubble. He even quotes, "In the late stages of a bubble, prices typically go parabolic."
That sounds ominous. Like the market is climbing higher and higher, but we all know it's going to come crashing down.
Right. And Sharma's worried because the U.S. is showing those classic signs of a bubble.
Okay.
Inflated prices, too much debt, and this disconnect between the market and how the economy is actually doing.
So is he saying that America's days as an economic superpower are numbered?
He's raising the question, is the U.S. losing its dominance? He doesn't give a definite answer, but he wants investors to think about it. Maybe the U.S. won't always be on top.
That's a big statement. But what could actually cause this bubble to burst? What should we be watching for?
There are a few things. If Europe or China's economies suddenly improve, that could shift the balance of power.
Right.
There could be some geopolitical event that we don't see coming or a shock to the financial system that could speed things up.
So there are a lot of factors both here and around the world.
Absolutely.
What would happen to the average American if this bubble did burst?
Well, it could mean a recession, job losses, people's standard of living going down. A lot of people could lose a lot of money. It's not a good scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. But I don't think Sharma's being all doom and gloom. I think he's mainly trying to warn us. He wants us to see the risks and start thinking about solutions before it's too late.
So let's talk about those solutions. What can we do to fix this and get the U.S. economy back on track?
Sharma doesn't have any magic answers, but he does say that we need to be responsible with our spending.
Right.
Getting government spending under control and shrinking that national debt are key. But as we said earlier, that's a lot easier said than done. It takes tough decisions and the will to do it, which is hard to find.
It's like we're stuck. We got to reduce the debt to avoid a crisis, but if we do that, it could hurt the economy.
It's a delicate balance. Sharma suggests a multi-pronged approach, not just cutting spending, but also making smart investments in things that boost productivity and encourage innovation,
Okay.
like education, infrastructure, research, and development. These kinds of investments can set us up for long-term growth.
Makes sense. It's not just about tightening the belt, it's about investing in the future.
Hmm.
What about the average person listening to this? What can they do to prepare?
That's a really good question. Look, we can't control the big economic forces, but we can make ourselves more resilient. One of the big takeaways from Sharma's book is the importance of diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, whether it's your investments, your income streams, or even your skills and knowledge. The more diverse you are, the better you'll handle whatever comes your way.
So spread the risk, create a safety net for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say we're at a dinner party, someone brings up Sharma's book and all these warnings. What are the key takeaways to share?
I'd say awareness is key. You need to be informed to make good decisions. Don't just follow the crowd or believe the hype. Do your own research, understand the risks, and make choices that fit your own goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Don't invest in something you don't understand. That's good advice. Education is key.
Absolutely. And it's not just about investing. It's about being smart with your money. Having an emergency fund, a long-term financial plan, that's crucial no matter what the economy is doing.
Sharma has this bold line. He says to bet against American exceptionalism. What does that mean in real life?
I think he's using that phrase to shake things up, to challenge this idea that America will always be the top dog economically. He wants us to consider scenarios where other countries or regions might take the lead.
So the global economy is always changing, and we need to change with it.
Exactly. We can't just sit back and relax. The future is uncertain, and the only way to navigate it is to stay informed, be adaptable, and be willing to learn new things.
Now, Sharma paints a pretty grim picture, but does he see any good things, any opportunities in all of this?
He doesn't focus on the positives too much, but he does say that economic bubbles, while often destructive, can also lead to new ideas and creativity.
Oh.
You get this influx of capital and this feeling of optimism. It can lead to breakthroughs in technology, new business models, even changes in how society works.
So it's a double-edged sword. Bubbles can create wealth, but also destruction. The trick is to harness the good without getting caught up in the hype.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot between optimism and caution, seeing the potential for growth, but also understanding the risks.
Let's flip the script for a second. Let's say Sharma is right. We are on the edge of a major economic shift. What opportunities could come from all this change?
That's a great question. Disruption often creates opportunities for those who can adapt and come up with new ideas. We might see whole new industries pop up, different business models, technological advances that solve problems and reshape the economic landscape.
So instead of being afraid, we should see it as a chance to change things for the better and create a more resilient economic system.
Exactly. It's about embracing change, being open to new ideas, and seeing that even in uncertain times, there's always the potential for growth and progress.
That's a positive message. So as we wrap up this look at Ruchir Sharma's analysis, what's the one thing you want listeners to think about?
I want them to remember this. Don't just be a spectator. Get involved, ask questions, challenge what you think you know, and make informed decisions based on the best information you can find. The more we understand about the economy, the better we'll be able to deal with it.
That's a great call to action. It's about taking control and shaping our own economic future. And on that note, we encourage you to keep exploring these ideas. Share your thoughts with us. We're all in this together, and by talking about it, we can make society more informed and resilient. So we've really dug into Ruchir Sharma's analysis of the U.S. economy. We've talked about the risks, possible solutions, and even some opportunities. Now let's bring it back to you. What stood out to you in this conversation? What questions do you have? What worries you when you think about your own financial decisions?
Economics isn't just some theoretical thing. It affects all of us in real ways.
Exactly.
Sharma's book helps us understand the bigger forces at work, but it's up to each of us to figure out what it means for our own lives.
Right. Take some time to think about your own finances. How could these potential economic shifts affect your goals? Do you need to adjust your budget, your investments, your long-term plan?
It's all about taking charge of your financial well-being and making choices that work for you and your risk tolerance. Remember, knowledge is power. The more you know, the better you can navigate the world of finance.
One thing Sharma keeps pointing out is that these trends aren't just happening in the U.S. Rising debt, government intervention, potential shifts in global economic power, it's happening everywhere.
That's a really important point. Even if you're not directly invested in the U.S. economy, these global trends can still impact your life no matter where you live. It shows how interconnected the global financial system is. What happens in one place can have ripple effects everywhere, creating both challenges and opportunities.
We're all in this together. We need to think globally, but act locally. As we wrap up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away?
Be a lifelong learner. Be ready to adapt. The economy is constantly changing. What worked in the past might not work tomorrow. Stay curious, question everything, and be willing to change course when you need to.
That's great advice. Embrace learning, especially when it comes to finance.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and helped you understand the forces shaping our economic future.
Remember, you're in control of your own financial destiny. Stay informed, stay involved, and stay ahead of the game. We'll see you on the next deep dive.